Hey, honey.
Yes, Barry?
Let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Este ritmo de palmas, sin naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Hey, maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez, and Alberto is the owner of the Lapa Lapa group of restaurants here. Those are the Lapa Lapa, Puerto Vallarta's oldest restaurant on the famous Los Muertos Beach, and the El Dorado Restaurant and Beach Club right next door. So you can enjoy that fantastic view of the Los Muertos Pier all lit up at night in beautiful colors, or during the day in its grand splendor for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, seated with your toes in the sand right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week we're going to go to a very unique place. It's right in the middle of the Emiliano Zapata neighborhood on the south side of Puerto Vallarta. It's a restaurant, it's a bar, it's an artist co-op, and it's called Qulture. It was my first visit to Qulture, and it's definitely not going to be my last. We're going to be talking with some of the artists there, Cassandra Shaw, Claudette Johnston, and Barbara Stenz. We're going to also go to Los Muertos Pier. We're going to hook up with a panga ride. We're going to show you how it's done. But before we get to that, let's see what's happening this week in Puerto Vallarta, the 20th of September, 2019. Well, it's hurricane season, and Tropical Storm Lorena turned into a hurricane. Dumped lots of rain on Puerto Vallarta as it churned up the Mexican Pacific coast. The center of the storm passed through Puerto Vallarta between 9 in the morning Thursday until about 9 at night. And, of course, that was on September the 18th. There was virtually no wind, even though it was a hurricane, at least here in Puerto Vallarta. But they did get wind down in Colima, and I saw some photos of some blown-over banana trees. So watch out for the price of bananas. I'm just kidding. Banana trees are pretty easy to blow over, by the way, especially when the ground is soggy. I know that because I have banana trees in my own backyard, so there. Anyway, it's been a very dry September so far. And the rain is very, very welcome, although there were a lot of flooded streets, a lot of overflowing rivers, and all the great stuff that comes with flooding and lots of rain. But luckily, it was, no wind. So the mayor, the city officials, they all huddled together on Wednesday, making plans for the heavy rains and the flooding. And they did a pretty good job of keeping up with things. So Angela, up above Cape Pasa, Angela, the weather station lady, she says that up until yesterday we were about 4 inches short of last year's total, but no longer. With yesterday's rainfall, we are way ahead of last year's totals. Of course, we don't have those just yet, and when she gets those to me, we'll get them to you. 41 inches so far, and that doesn't count the rainstorm that dropped yesterday and what's coming along today. So I'm sure that's going to increase by quite a bit. Thank you, Angela, and hopefully I'll see you when I get to Puerto Vallarta. Now, as I said a couple weeks ago, the countdown is on for my upcoming trip to paradise. Next month, I'll be there from the 6th until the 18th. So I'm going to put the word out right now. We're going to have an open microphone podcast meet and greet over at JR's meet and greet spot over at Kelly's Por Favor Saloon and Cookhouse. And it's going to be Tuesday, October the 8th from 5:30 until 7:30. We're going to have it up on the rooftop. And I'm going to have, I'll have some Puerto Vallarta Travel Show t-shirts with me. So the first of you who show up and ask for one will get a t-shirt. First come, first serve, of course. I don't have more than a handful of them, so if you want one, ask me quick, okay? If you have a local business or a local Puerto Vallarta charity and you want to tell us about it, tell my listeners all about it. They all want to know what's going on in town, and it's a great time for you to get the word out to all of my Puerto Vallarta lover listeners. So don't be shy. Come on down. It's going to be October the 8th. Once again, Kelly's Por Favor Saloon and Cookhouse over on Lazaro Cardenas 245. And that, of course, is in the romantic zone of Puerto Vallarta. And come on down. Let's talk. Tell me your Puerto Vallarta story. And it's always a great time. It really is. I get the best interviews when you folks come and visit me and tell me what you're doing in paradise. And talking about my upcoming trip, I got an email. From a guy named Martin. Martin is actually a podcaster as well. And Martin won a trip to Puerto Vallarta on a radio station. And he told me that he was looking for a podcast about Puerto Vallarta. And what do you know? He came across mine. And so I'm gonna have Martin on. We're gonna hear about what he did with his prize vacation. But he had a couple questions as to how I do my podcast. And he writes, about your workflow, do you have a bunch of pre-done podcasts ready for release? I'm curious how you plan out your shows. When listening, it sounds like you're down there often and then run around getting interviews while you're there and compile them for release after. That would make for a fun way to get around while there. Just listen to your story about your Spanish learning trip with the mushrooms. Man, what an adventure that would have been. The whole thing, not just the high parts. I can only imagine, especially back then when the world was a different place. I'm not so sure that you'd want to do the same type of trip these days. Of course, your show helps me relax and pretend that I'm back there again. It's a nice, easy show to listen to, and you have a very relaxed sort of 70s, 80s way of speaking. Chill and laid back. Haha. Okay, so talk soon, Martin. Okay. All right, let me work on my chill voice here. Well, Martin, I'm kidding. Anyway, I get this question a lot when I'm down in Puerto Vallarta. A lot of locals actually think that I live there. I wish, but maybe someday. You never know. I'll let you guys be the first to know if I ever decide to do that. But yeah, Martin, you are absolutely right. I come to town 3 times a year for about 10 days at a time. I come at the beginning of January, and then sometimes I come in the middle of May, and then again at the beginning or the middle of October. And during the 10 days, I do like you said, I run around, I record interviews, and what I do is I try to get about 20 interviews at a time, each time I'm down here. So it works out to an average of about 2 interviews per day. And sometimes when you're doing interviews, sometimes you strike out. Sometimes you get none. Even though you plan for them and you make the arrangements and you make an appointment, sometimes it just does not happen. The interviewee gets busy or something happens, they get sick or they forget. That never happens. So, yeah, sometimes I get 0, sometimes I get 4, sometimes I get more. It all depends on how the stars align and how many I need to get and if I'm playing catch-up. So, yeah, there's that going on. And anyway, I take those interviews home, and I make a schedule for release of the interview the different interview segments, and I do that based on the flow of the show. So, for example, if the person who I interviewed needs me to get that information out right away, maybe I will get that interview out right away, and I won't wait, for a month or two. You know what I mean? Sometimes I skip between restaurants and a subject or a person, place, or thing, right? So if I've done a restaurant 1 week, I'll do something different the next week. I'll try not to do back-to-back restaurant interviews if I can help it. And then I hit all the Puerto Vallarta news outlets to see what's happening the coming week, and I will report on it if I think it's important. And I subscribe to a whole lot of Spanish language online newspapers, and so that helps me out a lot. And sometimes I'll add, as you know, if you're a regular listener, I'll add a national news story instead of just Puerto Vallarta or local Jalisco news. Or I'll get into some Mexican history, which we'll do that today, because Mexican history is extremely fascinating to me. Any kind of history. I love history. So Mexican history to me is pretty cool. Anyway, I'll throw that in from time to time, as you know. And then I get to the interview, which, of course, I have pre-recorded. And so I record myself doing the news of the day. Then I put in the interview. And, of course, I record myself saying goodbye. I edit the pre-recorded interviews, so I take out the pauses and the screw-ups, and, they're usually my screw-ups. I take out, if we can't get it right, I do my best to edit our conversations. And then I splice it all together. I run it through some filters and some levelators, and I add the intro music and the outro music, and then I upload it to my media host. I type up my blog post, I upload the pictures, I add links. It sounds like a lot of work, right? It does. It is. It's a lot of work. It takes about 6 hours, I think, total to produce one 1-hour podcast and blog post. And of course, if I didn't do the blog post, I would save myself several hours easily. But the blog post is a very important part of the podcast, believe it or not. There are just a lot of people that don't even listen to the podcast, but they read the blog. So it's interesting to me. I don't usually have the blog itself transcribed, although some of them I do. So, but no, some people don't even listen to it. They just read the blog post. They look at the pretty pictures, and on they go. They look at the list of the restaurants that I have on there that are suggested by the guest. Or places to visit and things like that, and have those all linked up. And, of course, they go and they look at all the pictures. And so, I have to do both. It's just really important. And of course, you're right. I plan these out, and it forces me to go out and do what I urge all of my listeners to do, and that's to leave the comfort of my hotel room or my Airbnb or a resort. And I go out and I do something, and I'll get on a bus, I'll take an Uber, I'll take a Pango ride, I'll go to Maito, I'll head up the Rio Quale, I'll go to watch them release turtles, all that stuff that I do, and bring you on the podcast. I do because there's just so much to learn and so much to do in Puerto Vallarta. And so that's the deal. That's how I do it. Thank you very much, Martin. I'll have you on the show, and we'll see what a fellow podcaster thinks about Puerto Vallarta. So stay tuned when I'll give you a little heads up when we're getting Martin on the show. Now, we're in the middle of September, or Septiembre, as they call it locally. Septi, meaning September, and hombre, meaning hungry. And it's that time of year when just so many of the restaurants are closed. They're taking time off, they're doing renovations, they're out on vacation, they're giving their employees some time, a little break before they get right back to it again. And there's no income going on during most of this time. So it's a hungry time, which is why they call it Septiembre. So with that in mind, keep your eyes open. keep your eyes open for petty theft. This time of year, it happens a little more than most, so be aware. Now, last week, we were talking about that sometimes we talk about history. Last week, we talked about the Mexican Revolution, and I promised that I'd follow up with a couple of fun facts surrounding the capture and the death of the priest Miguel Hidalgo de Castilla. We talked about Josefa Ortiz de Dominguez, and she was the wife of the magistrate of the town of Querétaro. This is back in the year 1810. And Josefa was a housewife of many kids. She had 14 kids. And she started a book club that ultimately was the birthplace of the Mexican Revolution. I talked about the priest Miguel Hidalgo y Castilla, about his famous proclamation that he made in the city of Dolores in the early morning hours of September 16th, 1810. September 16th is when Mexico celebrates Independence Day. And back there in 1810, he urged his countrymen to take arms up against the Spanish and to purge them from Mexico. And if you remember, I talked about what happened to Hidalgo and his fellow conspirators. We talked about their heads, but if you haven't listened to that episode, you need to check out last week's show, where I interviewed Connor Watts from Los Muertos Brewing. We talked about his new place he's getting ready to open, and we talked about that. We talked to that couple on the bus from Patagonia to Alaska. And anyway, if you haven't heard that story yet, go back and listen to that. But last week, I told you I'd tell you the story of the capture of the Revolutionary Patriots and the story of the Mexican Benedict Arnold, who was instrumental in capturing them. The Benedict Arnold was named Ignacio Elizondo. And Hidalgo, who had no military experience, was named by his followers as Captain General of the Revolutionary Army. He had a second in command, Allende, with the rank of Lieutenant General. The rebel army under Hidalgo enjoyed early successes, but they were decisively defeated by the Royalist Army, supporting Spanish rule on January 17th, 1811, in the Battle of Calderon Bridge near Guadalajara. Now I'm going to read here from the wiki pages about this story. It says, along with the remnants of the rebel army, Allende, Aldama, and Hidalgo and others fled northward with the goal of getting to the United States and hoping that they would receive military and financial support from the U.S. The military leaders blamed Hidalgo for the loss at Calderon Bridge, and they forced him to resign his command and threatened to execute him if he resisted. Thereafter, Hidalgo was effectively a prisoner of Allende and the rebel army. Meanwhile, another rebel general, Jose Mariano Jimenez, was leading a separate army of 7,000 men from San Luis Potosi towards Saltillo, the town of Saltillo. A royalist force of 700 men chose to defect to Jimenez rather than to fight, and on January the 8th, 1811, he entered the city of Saltillo. The rebel Jimenez sent out parts of his army to take control of several northern cities, including Monclova. And to command in Monclova, Jimenez dispatched Pedro de Aranda. He was 73 years old and a heavy drinker. And in Monclova, Aranda chose a retired militia officer. His name was Ignacio Elizondo. And he chose him to take charge of the royalist prisoners there. And Elizondo was converted back to the royalist cause by his prisoners, but he was asked to continue to pretend that he supported the rebels in order to gain intelligence about the plans of Allende and Hidalgo. The royalist sympathizers in Monclova included a group of large landowners of the region led by José Melchor Sánchez Navarro. The remnants of the retreating rebel army under Allende and Aldama joined Jiménez in Saltillo on February 24th. Hidalgo arrived with the rear guard on March 4th or 5th, and as Royalist armies were advancing on Saltillo, the rebels made plans to continue their flight towards the United States. The principal route to the U.S. was through Monclova, and the best source of water en route to Monclova was a place called the Wells of Bajan. The Royalist sympathizers in Monclova sent two prominent citizens as spies to Saltillo to ascertain the plans of the rebels, and the spies won the confidence of Allende and other leaders and volunteered to guide the rebels to Texas. They told Allende that Elizondo would meet them at the Wells of Bajan and would escort them to Monclova. In Monclova, the Royalists seized key points in the city, capturing the inebriated Aranda, the rebel commander in the city, and blocking all roads out of Monclova in order to prevent the news that they had taken control of reaching Allende and Hidalgo. Elizondo, his adherence to the Royalists unsuspected by the rebels, was sent with 150 men to the Wells of Bajan in order to capture the rebel leaders. On March 17, 1811, Generals Allende, Jiménez, Aldama, Padre Hidalgo, and more than 1,000 soldiers of the rebel army departed Saltillo to march north to Monclova. The caravan was strung out on the road over a distance of 15 miles, 24 kilometers. An advance guard led the convoy, followed by more than 20 horse-drawn carriages transporting the rebel leaders. Following the carriages was a mule train with loads of supplies and silver bullion. Next came caissons of artillery, cumbersome ox-drawn carts carrying munitions, and finally the bulk of the soldiers and the rear guard. On the evening of March 20th, the rebels camped 16 kilometers from the Wells of Bajan, and at dawn on March 21st, a courier arrived with a letter for Jiménez, ensuring the unsuspecting rebel general that Elizondo and his soldiers were waiting for them at the Wells of Bajan and would welcome the arrival of the rebel army. The courier suggested to Jiménez that due to the shortages of water, the convoy should arrive at Bajan in stages in order to allow time for the wells to recharge after each drawdown of water. He also suggested that the leaders arrive first so that they could continue rapidly on towards Monclova. Jiménez accepted the suggestion, and the convoy set out that morning towards Bajan without scouts or outriders and arrived at the Wells of Bajan piecemeal. Elizondo greeted the rebel leaders with an honor guard. He led the carriages behind a nearby hill, not visible from the remainder of the rebel convoy, and there his men demanded the surrender of the rebel leaders. Padre Hidalgo, on horseback, drew a pistol, but was restrained from firing by a Royalist soldier. Allende and Jiménez were in the fifth carriage, and Allende opened fire. In the return fire, Allende's son and several rebel soldiers were killed. The Royalists tied the hands of the rebel leaders and their escorts and escorted them to a makeshift prison camp, and this process of capturing the elements of the rebel army continued all day long. As each new element arrived, they were taken captive by Elizondo's men, and by the end of the day, the Royalists had 893 prisoners and had killed about 40 of the Royalists who had resisted. The rear guard was the only contingent of the rebel army which sensed danger and escaped capture. Then the next day, Elizondo divided the prisoners into three groups. The leaders of the rebels, including Padre Hidalgo, captured rebel clergymen and common soldiers. Then all the prisoners were taken to Monclova first, and the lesser offenders remained there for trial. 10 captured clergymen were then taken to Durango. 27 military leaders and Hidalgo were taken to Chihuahua for trial. Allende, Aldama, and Jimenez were tried and found guilty in May of 1811 and executed by firing squads and decapitated on July 26, 1811. Hidalgo was tried by the Mexican Inquisition by the Bishop of Durango, Francisco Gabriel de Oliveras, for an official defrocking and excommunication on the 27th of July, 1811, and then he was tried by a military court that found him guilty of treason, and he was executed on July 30th, 1811. There's many stories about how he was executed, and we'll get to that another day. But he also was decapitated, and as I said last week, the heads were sent back to Guanajuato, and they were suspended in cages and then hung on the four corners of the Alhóndiga de Granaditas. And if you want to know more about that story, of course, go to last week's episode, and you will hear it. And last week I also promised you I would tell you what happened to Josefa Ortiz de Dominguez. She was the lady that started it all. Well, eventually the role that Ortiz de Dominguez and her husband played in the conspiracy was uncovered. They were imprisoned separately. She was sent to the monastery of Santa Clara in Querétaro and then to Mexico City to stand trial. Despite her husband's efforts as her lawyer, she was found guilty. Would you let your husband defend you? Never mind. She was found guilty and placed in reclusion in the monastery of Santa Teresa. And due to her rebellious character, which meant she probably screamed a lot, she was soon transferred to the convent of Santa Catalina de Sena, and Ortiz de Dominguez was released in 1817 under an oath that she would refrain from supporting the rebellion. Then after the War of Independence in 1822, Mexican Emperor Agustín de Iturbide offered Ortiz de Dominguez the role of lady-in-waiting for his wife, Ana María de Huarte y Muniz. However, Ortiz de Dominguez believed that the establishment of the Mexican Empire instead of a republic was against the ideals that she fought for during the Revolutionary period, and so she refused that honor. In 1823, she was designated a Woman of Honor by the Empress, a tribute to which she also denounced. And then during the late years of her life, Ortiz de Dominguez was involved with several radical political groups, go figure. She always refused any reward from her involvement in the independence movement, arguing that she was only doing her duty as a patriot. She died in 1829 in Mexico City, and a very, very interesting lady. So let this be a warning to all of you. If your spouse asks you if they could start a book club, you know what? Just tell them no, okay? Just save yourself blood and guts and decapitations, all right? Okay. Let's get to the interviews, shall we? It is said, and has been said by many of my guests, that in order to really see Puerto Vallarta, you need to see it from the water. You need to get out on the bay. So how do you get a ride on a panga from Los Muertos Pier? Well, here's what you do. You walk up on the pier, and you look for my buddy, Carlos Hernandez. That's exactly what you're going to do. In fact, let's go right now. Let's go to El Muelle. Let's go to the pier, the Los Muertos Pier, and let's meet the captain himself, Captain Carlos Hernandez, the panga guy. So how you doing? What's your name?
Carlos.
Carlos, what you doing out here? You're selling trips on pangas, are you?
I selling the tours and the pangas.
Okay, so tell us what someone has to do. They walk to the pier. They come and find you here.
Yes.
Now, how much does it cost?
The cost is 700 pesos each hour for 6-8 person maximum in each boat.
Okay, so it's a private ride. So if you want to go with...
Only you and your family and the capitan, no colectivos.
Okay, so that kind of translates in dollars to what, about $35?
$35, yes.
Okay, so about 35.
One angel. Or the two angel, or it's a $50 and the two angel.
So a single engine. So if you don't need a whole lot of power, like if you don't have a big butt, I'm sorry, I don't mean that, but if you don't have you don't need to go really fast.
No, it's to along the coast. Visit too many different beaches, different places, and a couple hours going to the national park, and 4 hours going to Las Animas Beach, and 6 hours going to Yelapa Village.
Okay, so that's what you got to plan for, like 6 hours.
How many time you rent? Depend. How many time rent, go to the different each place.
Okay, so if you're going to go to Yelapa, you got to plan for about 6 hours?
Yelapa, 6 hours minimum the time, yes.
Okay, because that's for the panga and for you to go and, party
yes,
and...
1 hour go, 1 hour back, 3-4 hours parking there in the beach. Or visit to the waterfall or visit to the village, forever.
Right. So that takes a little time and then the ride back. So 6 times 35, do the math, you guys. Okay, so now...
Everything time is 6 hours round trip.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And that's kind of the same with most of the beaches, right? Or maybe Las Animas is closer,
Las
maybe
Animas
4 hours.
It's very good for go to eating because there is cooking very good.
Right. So you suggest, hopping over there.
It's cooking very good seafood or Mexican food, depends.
So do you go other places?
Other roasted, lobster, everything is fresh in Las Animas.
Okay, so now if you're not going to go to a beach and maybe you just want to take a tour of the coastline, maybe see Vallarta from the ocean.
To along the coast, yes. To along the coast, you visit many different places.
Okay, and so there's a minimum of 2 hours, right?
The minimum 2 hours for go to the national park.
Okay, over to the Los Arcos.
Or Miss Maloya Beach.
Right. Or if you want to go up, you can go up the coast a little bit.
If you like to go to the downtown, it's only 1 hour. Visit to the Malecon or the church. But this side is 1 hour.
Yeah.
But this side is many hours.
Very good.
It's many hours.
Do you have a website?
No.
You don't. But you have how can we contact you?
Contact for the phone. You have my business card.
Okay. Very good. I'll have all of his information in the show notes for this episode, and I will have all your information right there. So I'll take his picture too, so you'll know what he looks like when you come on down on the pier. And this is how you do it. This is how you get yourself a boat ride when you're in Puerto Vallarta. Thanks for talking to me today.
When you have a business, you call me 1 day before. If yes, same day, you call me 1 hour before.
Okay, right. So give him a call first. Don't come looking for him, right?
Yes, sí.
Okay, very good. All right. Excellent. Thanks for talking with me today.
Mucho gusto, señor.
All right. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you very much. I have pictures of Carlos, so you'll be able to find him. I have his business card, too. You go over to the show notes and check out his contact information there. Or just, take a walk up on the pier, a short walk. Don't take a long walk on a pier. You know what happens when you do that. You look for him there or ask for him there. It's really easy to get a ride just for a couple hours, like for $70 US. Not a problem at all. Split it with another couple. Go up to 6 people. It's cheap. Really. Treat yourself to a panga guy. Really. Make sure you tip him. Give him some beer afterwards, not before, okay? Never hurts. All right, now, next thing we do, we're going to the Emiliano Zapata neighborhood, and we're going to go to a really cool spot called Qulture. Now, we have heard of Qulture from several guests, people from Qulture and people who have eaten there, have gone there, who've suggested that we go there. And so I figured I'm going to go there. It's a restaurant. It's a bar. It's an artist co-op. But I had not been inside the place until last May. Always seemed to hit it on the wrong day. So anyway, when I was in town, I got a message from my friend Jamie Burton Chamberlain. We've met Jamie before. He's from the Red Room and Black Dahlia Music Productions. And he asked me if it would be possible if he could set up a couple interviews up at Qulture, that he would set up the room, he'd set up the people. Would I be interested? And of course I said yes. I love that when people do that for me. No one does that for me. You do that for me, Jamie. That's great. So he did. He invited He invited me over to see the place, too. And the building used to be a Mexican-style hotel with rooms that were built around a central courtyard. And in the courtyard, there is a restaurant and a beautiful bar. The kitchen is open to the diners, and they can see the food being prepared. And there's a large service section there, the food bar there. It's painted with an incredible Adrian Tacano mural, and I have pictures of that, and I have a video of that. You can see those in the show notes as well, but just gorgeous. And in the middle of the restaurant, there is a remarkable circular bar, and it has the most amazing mosaic tile work that I have seen in a long, long, long time. The work is done by the brother of Natasha Moraga. Natasha Moraga, of course, from Tile Park PV, and Daniel Moraga, also of Tile Park PV. It is incredible work. I have a picture of that as well, and a video of that as well in the show notes. I'll also post some of these pictures of the bar and the restaurant on the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show Facebook page. I'll make sure they're on there this week, so you'll find those pics there. And if you haven't liked my Puerto Vallarta Travel Show Facebook page, you got to go there, like it, and whenever I post there, you will see stuff come to you. And anyway, as you sit in this restaurant and enjoy a beverage or a fine meal, you are sitting in a lovely courtyard, music, usually some soft music playing, and there's art everywhere, of course. And you can look up from your seat and you can see all the rooms and the artist retreats and the studios all up there around you. It's a really very magical place. I really loved it there. Now, I interviewed 3 people while I was there. And, well, actually, come to think of it, I interviewed 5 people while I was there. But I'm only going to be playing 3 interviews right now. So the other 2, they'll come a little later. But not too much later, okay? Anyway, so let's go right now to Venustiano Carranza, 466, in the romantic zone of Puerto Vallarta. Let's hear from the ladies today. First of all, we have Claudette Johnston from C. Johnston Designs, and then we have another artist named Barbara Stenz, and then someone else, another artist who's been on the show before. You know her, and her name is Cassandra Shaw. And I'll be running all 3 of these interviews one after the other, without making any stops or breaks, okay? So here we go. Let's go right now to Qulture. Okay, Barb, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hi, Barry.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? And what was your path to Puerto Vallarta?
So, well, I came here the long way.
Okay.
I moved here from Jakarta, Indonesia.
Jakarta, Indonesia. Really?
Really, that really is true. I lived there for almost 20 years.
Okay. What were you, like a spook? Were you in the CIA? What's going on?
No, my husband worked there, so I followed along.
Oh, okay. All right. So where are you from?
I'm Canadian.
Oh, you're from Canada.
I am from Canada.
What part of Canada are you from?
Born in the prairies in Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan. Very nice. Okay, so you are a world traveler, and you finally ended up here in Puerto Vallarta.
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. So when you landed here, how long ago was that?
4 years ago.
Okay. So this seems to be a the 4-year deal. I'm getting a lot of 4 years.
I've met a lot of 4-year people, too,
yeah. Have you ever met any 5-year people? Because, sometimes they...
No.
See, they're not lasting. Look, watch your back. All right. So, when you came here, what did you do?
What did I do? The first thing I did was found some artists and took some painting classes, and that really is true.
Really? So you were not an artist before you came here?
No, actually, I'm a graphic designer.
Okay. A graphic designer.
A little different than painting with a brush.
This is a computer.
Computer, yes.
Right, okay, and that's what you do here.
That's what I do, yes.
All right, so let's talk about your graphic designing. Do you design for, are you one of these digital nomad types who graphic designs for people that are somewhere in other parts of the world?
I do. I don't actually do very much of that. Since I've been in Qulture, I picked up the brush and I'm painting now.
Oh, so you have made the conversion, have you?
I'm converting still.
Okay, all right. What kind of things do you like to paint?
Right now I'm painting whales. Okay. A lot of sea life, a lot of fish. I paint a lot of fish. I try to do things that are around me.
Uh-huh. All right.
But right now we're into oils.
Right now you're into Wales. Okay. And are you painting on large canvases, small? What's your medium?
Any size.
And is it oils?
Acrylic, mostly acrylic, yeah.
Okay.
Right now, acrylic.
All right. Well, we'll have some pictures, some of Barb's pictures here, and we'll post them so you can take a look at her artwork.
Thank you.
And of course, if you do come to Qulture, you can, come and take a look at her artwork. It's posted here, yes?
Yes, I've got a studio actually right next door to where we are right now.
Okay.
And I also
Lucky
have...
number 13, is that where you are?
No, I'm in 15.
You're in 15.
The other
You're
way.
the other way.
The other
okay.
way.
All right.
And I've also got stuff downstairs in the gallery.
Okay. And so the things that you are displaying here are your paintings. How do you like Qulture? How do you feel about this place?
Love Qulture. It's a great place to be creative. It's super people. You always meet somebody new here. It's just a fun place. It's really good.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Because I always go into the bonus round with all of my interviews. You are no exception. So I'm going to go ahead and go right into the bonus round. We're going to leave Qulture, and we're going to go out into the city, and I'm going to ask you your favorite breakfast, lunch, and dinner places. What's your favorite breakfast spot?
Freddy Toucan's.
Okay. What do you get when you go there?
Eggs Benedict.
Really? You like their eggs Benny over there?
I do.
Okay. How about lunch? What do you like for lunch?
I actually like the taco stands.
Yeah? You got a favorite taco stand?
The fish taco stand around the corner.
Yeah. You know what?
Here.
Jamie was telling me about that. He says it's pretty darn good.
They're, for me, the best.
All right. So what kind of stuff do they prepare? What's that taco stand like?
Actually, it's all seafood. Shrimp, fish. I only know the ones I order.
Yeah. Do they have ceviche, or is this all hot food?
Hot food.
It's all hot food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not a big menu. It's pretty limited, but it's good.
It's a cart, you guys. It's a taqueria.
It's good stuff.
All right. Very good. And what about dinner? You got a favorite place for dinner?
Dinner, I like La Traviata.
Why do you like that place?
The view, good food, and it's just a nice, quiet place away from the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And they do a pretty good job up there, too.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
And you get another view. That's the Cinco de Diciembre neighborhood, and get a little bit of the downtown view. So it's a little bit of a change of pace from the romantic zone.
It feels like a secret place. All the tourists don't know about it.
Yeah. Okay. Shh. We won't tell anybody. If you had a word of advice for a first-time traveler to Puerto Vallarta, what would it be?
Talk to the locals.
Yeah.
Make friends with the locals.
Okay. Very good advice. First-time visitor, any kind of warning or advice there?
Not really.
No?
Not really. Watch out for cobblestones.
Right. Cobblestones will trip you up for sure. Have I missed anything else? Is there anything else you want to talk about today?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And taking the time and letting me introduce you to my listeners and, letting me introduce you and your art over here at Qulture. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. It's exciting that you guys are here.
Cassandra, thanks for coming on the
Darren,
show.
thank you very much for having me.
Tell me a little bit about what's going on. I've had you on the show before, so
Yes.
you're a second timer.
Oh, boy.
Doesn't happen a lot.
Usually you're not welcome back. So, hi, thanks for having me back. It's great to be with you again. Haven't seen you for a long time.
Yeah. So tell me what's going on. You're painting here at Qulture?
Yes, I've been involved with Qulture before it was Qulture, actually. Now I'm into my second year, and it has had a lot of changes, amazing changes, and it's such a beautiful space with such great energy, and that's not only because of the space and the openness. It's also because the people that work here, the people that paint here, and the owners are fantastic. And all around, it's a lovely place to be and hang out and paint and have dinner.
Yeah. So you have you have a studio here. Of course, your jewelry store has got a lot of your art, both upstairs and downstairs. Mm-hmm. So is that where you're displaying that, or you're keeping things here too? What are you up to?
Well, initially, when I first started here with my workshop studio, there was no room to display or no secured area to display your artwork. So it was just a workshop for me. Mm-hmm. I brought all my paintings back to my jewelry gallery and hung them there. And once they opened the restaurant, and of course they want to decorate the restaurant with the focus on the people that are working here in the studio and their artwork. So the restaurant owners asked for the painters to be able to hang their work here. And a lot of the people that are working here don't have a gallery like I do, so it's a perfect spot for them to showcase their work. And so I've been hanging here and trying to get as much painting done as possible, so I have enough work for both spots, both the places. Nice.
You came walking in here with two puppies, two lovely doggies, and you've got a foster dog you were telling me about.
Yes.
So tell me about that. What's going on with the foster dogs?
Okay, well, we always have been supporting of all the charities in town, not only for the dogs, but for the children and for the women in need. And we started taking in street dogs and getting them nursed back to health if they were sick, which most of them do have health issues, getting them neutered, which all of them usually need to get neutered, and then finding homes for them. I have fostered many dogs in my 6-7 years of doing this, and my sister has fostered probably 5 times as many as I have. Wow. She always has a big collection in her house. And from our store, we have adopted out over 150 dogs to people here in Vallarta or in Mexico elsewhere or in Canada or United States. And we try to make sure they become healthy, happy dogs and companions for people. It's hard to sometimes let them go. Hi, Polga. Polga's barking. But it's very rewarding when you find them a good home.
Yeah, definitely. And then that makes room for the next one.
Exactly. If we kept keeping them, we couldn't.
You'd be the crazy dog lady.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm already that.
Well, I see that there's a lot of crazy dog ladies around town, and crazy dog men, too.
Yeah.
So what else is happening? What else is new and interesting around town?
Well, speaking of dog lady, when I was flying in a couple weeks ago, I went to Seattle for 2 weeks. When I was flying in, I was on the plane, and the flight attendant stopped in his tracks and said to me, "Oh my gosh, I love your rings." And I said, "Thank you." And he said, "Did you get them at that Chihuahua store?" Well, I gave him a card
famous.
And said, "The dog is here with me." So I've been, we've had a busy season, so I've been working at the tail ends of that. And as usual, I'm always doing custom work, jewelry work for people, or trying out new designs. And I've also, I had a very busy season with custom paintings. Yeah. So I was in Qulture quite a bit and having fun working with my art. And now it's been quiet. It's the month of May, and of course May really quiets down in Vallarta. And people leave for the summer, but it's a nice break. And everyone needs that break because it was a very hectic season.
Yeah, and they're getting longer and longer, it seems.
Yeah, well, usually Easter is a good indication of when the season will end. But it seemed like we had some very good business early May. And also the weather's been much cooler than normal. Yeah. Even though it's kind of hot right now.
Yeah, it is a little warm, but, you know.
But usually the heat gets turned up a lot in May, and people aren't so comfortable here. But we've had some beautiful river and ocean breezes, and people are still enjoying the climate quite a bit.
Yeah, thank goodness. Do you ever close during the slow season?
Yes, we close for the month of September. And all my staff takes a holiday and gets rested up for the beginning of the next season.
Yeah.
I myself leave for 5.5 months.
You do, huh?
Yes.
Where'd you go?
I go to Redmond, Washington, which is right beside Seattle. And I have a little hobby farm out there that we enjoy for the summer months. A few animals and a big garden.
Nice.
A few acres.
Yeah, nice.
Very
So it's a nice place to go to when it's unbearable here.
Great. And there's nothing like a Northwest summer.
Yeah. I love it up there. Is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye today?
Yeah, well, I would just really encourage everyone that's listening to this podcast to get off the beaten track and come and visit Qulture. It's a very unique place. It's not on the beach, but it's very breezy and artsy. Even with their food, they're very creative, and their drinks, they're very creative with those too. And people that come here really have a lot of great things to say about the place.
They sure do. The food is top notch, and like you said, the people here are just so friendly.
Yeah, and you can come also and visit the studios. They're all open in the evening. Except for Jamie's.
Hey, we won't say anything, Jamie.
And you can come and walk in the studios and see some places are totally working spaces, but they still have their artwork up and their paintbrushes out, and it's really an interesting place to be.
It certainly is. And you're an interesting person to talk to, and I certainly have. I'm so happy that you came back on the show to talk to me.
Thank you, Barry. You're a pleasure.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you so much for coming on the show. All right, so, Claudette, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what was your path that led you to Puerto Vallarta?
Well, I'm originally from Vancouver, British Columbia, and I was born and raised there. I've been in Mexico now a long time. A bit of a gypsy, traveled all my life. I had a home decor store in Vancouver for many years, and so I was the buyer. So I traveled all through Asia, and I guess I just got tired of Vancouver in many ways. The rain, all of it, right?
Right.
And I had friends here in Mexico in Playa del Carmen, and that's where I originally moved to, and I stayed there for a long time.
Yeah. So how'd you get over here to the west coast of the continent?
Well, I mean, I really loved Playa when I first went there, but then with all the changes, and I just felt like it was, I don't know, not for me anymore. It was kind of turning into a big Coco Bongo. And so I moved to San Miguel de Allende, and I discovered I really missed the ocean. And I kept driving here because I had friends here, so it just seemed like a natural progression to just come here.
How long is that drive to San Miguel Allende?
It's about 8 hours,
Oh,
a little
okay.
bit less if there's, not too bad of traffic.
Okay. And tell us about San Miguel Allende, other than the fact that it doesn't have an ocean. Did you like it?
It's beautiful. I love the architecture, and the weather is fantastic. It's a little cold in the winter, to be honest.
Really? So, yeah, coming from the great Northwest, you're done with that, right?
I was done with that. And in, the old kind of hacienda-style homes, there's no heat except for, a little electric heater or a propane fireplace. So I was married to my electric blanket for several months of the year. But it is a beautiful place. I still go back and visit, but I would never live there again.
Okay. So when you landed in Puerto Vallarta, what did you do?
I started my leather bags. I am an artist here at Qulture, C. Johnston Designs, and I hand make leather bags and accessories. All the leather is from Mexico. I get it from the center of the country, and I have a studio here.
And how is it, a foreigner coming here, basically producing something and selling something? How does that work out? How does that work for you?
It's good. I mean, I'm in a lot of stores as well.
Okay.
So I do some wholesale, and I do ship internationally. So it's not just tourists that are my market.
Okay, so you do an online marketing, obviously.
I have a web page, Etsy store, yeah.
Okay. Where do you have your items?
I have my items in San Miguel, in Tulum, Puerto Vallarta, Sayulita. I've shipped internationally to London, Berlin, Croatia. So, yeah.
You're out there.
I'm out there. I'm still working on it, though. I think the media part of it, it's not really my forte. I would rather be creating something. So I'm still working on it.
Yeah. This is an audio show, so I'll have pictures on the blog post of your items.
Sure.
But can you kind of describe what makes your purses different?
Well, I think that it's just the style. Everybody has a different style. Mine are kind of boho, but they're also modern at the same time. And the leather, I spend a good week picking and choosing each piece. Mm-hmm. So they're unique, they're one of a kind, and they're 100% handmade. Fantastic.
So in Vallarta, besides here at Qulture, are there any other places that people could see your work?
We're in Puerto Vallarta right now. It's just Qulture,
okay.
And I want to keep it that way.
Right.
I want people to come to Qulture to find my bags.
All right. So let's talk about Qulture. There have been a couple changes around Qulture. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that?
Well, we've had some changes in, administration. The investors came in, and they're lovely, Brent and David, and that's when I started working for Qulture, actually, and I was hired as the gallery manager. And I kind of took on the role of hostess as well, which it's fun. I enjoy it. I have met a lot of people. Other changes would be we have a new chef who's fabulous, Danielle, very creative. Lots of really interesting, from Asian to Cajun, Mexican, lots of vegetarian food, which is really more in demand than I ever realized, to be honest. He made the other night, I was like, what is this? It was a tofu ceviche. And it was really, really good. Yes. I was like, how can you do that? No, it was good.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So.
All right. So, what kind of? Can you describe the different kinds of dishes? If someone were to come into Qulture, sit down to have some dinner, what's on the menu?
Well, there's various items. There's something for everyone, for sure. We have starters, which most times are a meal for me. The sliders, shrimp bisque soup, which I adore. And then in the main courses we have, pork chop, fresh fish. We have salmon on the menu now, shrimp and grits on the menu now, which we just added. It's to die for. Mm-hmm. And a fabulous steak. So there's a little bit for everyone. The vegetarian food, I've tried it as well. Mm-hmm. It's actually fabulous. We have a Thai cauliflower. It's quite spicy curry, and it's on a bed of rice. It's delicious. So there's something for everybody, for sure.
Excellent. All right. Now, I know that there are different artists. There's a number of artists, including you and Jamie here. Who else is in the building?
Well, there's 16 artists in total.
So I'm not going to have you name them all.
No, we have guest artists as well who are allowed to display in the common areas for a specific period of time based on sales. But Cassandra Shaw, this is her working studio. And she's a lovely woman, and she has a beautiful jewelry store on Paseo Badillo. She's been there for many, many years, well known in the community. We just got head of lettuce.
Yeah, I saw his office down there.
Awesome, fun, and I think next season we're going to have a lot of fun here at Qulture with head of lettuce here at Barbara Stein. She's been in Puerto Vallarta for a while now. She's been here as an artist before Qulture even. Mm-hmm. Lots of really fun stuff, really affordable art. Robert O'Malley, Bobby we call him. His art is really fun, interesting. So we're, I think, a really eclectic mix.
Yeah.
There's, something for everybody.
Something for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, got to wander up Venustiano Carranza and just check out what's going on here at Qulture. You know, it is kind of a little way up, so you do have to walk.
You do, but it's worth the effort. I mean, we have 2 for 1 from 4 till 7.
Okay. Hey, listen up, everybody.
And we have 2 of the best bartenders, I think, in Puerto Vallarta. They're very well known. They came from a very popular place, and they make some of the best martinis.
Yeah.
And they're awesome guys to just come and sit and chat with, too.
Excellent. Yeah, and you've got 2 of the most beautiful bars in Vallarta, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really pretty. They did an amazing job on the renovation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, let's leave Puerto Vallarta. Let's leave Qulture for just a minute. Let's walk out into town here.
Okay.
If you were going to get breakfast somewhere in town, you got a favorite place?
Johnny's Diner.
Why?
It's just a home cooking, kind of American style. Like if you want, bacon and eggs with hash browns and toast, it's
the American breakfast going on over there, right?
It is.
Okay.
I love bacon.
You love bacon. Who doesn't love bacon? Listen to this. I mean, hey, this town has got bacon around, I got to say. It does. All right. And so that's what you get. You get yourself an American breakfast or Canadian breakfast or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Okay. How about lunch? Now, I know they serve lunch here. Maybe that's not fair. Should I ask that? Or do they serve lunch here?
Yeah, and I wouldn't.
Let's not talk about that then. We don't go into lunch and dinner if it's served here. That's just my rule.
We eat here. I eat here every day.
Yeah, and why not?
Why not?
You got great chefs down
fabulous.
there. Yeah. If you were going to leave Vallarta for a day, go off on a day trip, and come back that night, where would you go?
Probably San Pancho.
Yeah. What do you like about San Pancho?
I just like the vibe. I like the artists out there. There's a lot of, handmade, really interesting crafts, from T-shirts to jewelry to leather. And I like the energy. It's not so crowded. The beach is okay, but, I mean, if you go to Sayulita, it's the opposite. And it's, more chaotic and all of it. So I would choose San Pancho for sure for a beach day.
Okay, cool. How about a 3-day?
You know what? I haven't done that.
You haven't done that yet?
No.
I'm coming back, and I'll ask you again next time.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. The last time I was away, I went to San Miguel for 2 months. So if it's more than 24 hours, I'm going a long ways.
Yeah,
I'm a gypsy.
You were not lying.
No. Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to a first-time visitor to Puerto Vallarta, other than coming to Qulture, of course?
That's a tough one for me, honestly.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You don't even have any advice, like don't get crazy drunk or anything like that?
Well, that's common sense.
Yeah.
I suppose the thing about common sense is it's not very common.
Right.
But, yeah, everybody comes here for a different reason. So it depends, who you're here with, why you're here, even if it's a vacation. Advice, I don't really have any. Just enjoy yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, all right. That's easy to do. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's come back. Let's come back over here to Qulture. And tell us about what the hours are here, what days you're open.
We're open Tuesday through Sunday. And that's subject to change. In the summer, we're planning on staying open all summer. Our hours are 4 till 10:30. Mm-hmm. But if the summer is really, really slow, it's possible we'll close for an extra day. Right. So we'll go to 5 days a week. And then once the season starts again, October 1st, we'll be back to the Tuesday through Sunday, 4 till 10:30. So we're open basically for cocktails and dinner.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's closed on Mondays. Just remember that.
We're closed on Mondays, yeah.
Don't come all the way up here and find them closed on Monday.
It's really not that far.
Oh, all right.
It isn't. It's only a couple of blocks.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm kidding. This is such a small little town. You guys can walk this town in like 3 minutes. All right, well, maybe not. But you can do it.
Yeah.
Is there anything I forgot? Is there anything I've missed that you want to maybe touch bases on?
Oh, we have an art walk every
Come on.
well, right now we're doing it because it's low season, and we were new to it this year. So we had just started it. We're doing it every second and every fourth Tuesday. And all of the galleries are open, and the artists, many of them are here. Complimentary sangria, and it's a lot of fun. We had some pretty big crowds for that.
Oh, that's great. All right.
Mm-hmm. Next year we might do it every Tuesday.
All right, so on every other Tuesday, it sounds like to me, right?
Well, it's every second.
Sorry.
And fourth Tuesday.
Second and fourth
Sometimes
Tuesday.
there
Get it
could
right,
be
Barry.
5 Tuesdays.
Yeah, there
we
are.
already had that confusion.
Uh-oh. Yeah, and that nasty calendar always
Yes.
gets in the way.
Yes.
Those Aztecs had it right.
Yeah, they did.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And for taking the time to allow me to introduce you and your art and, of course, Qulture to my audience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ladies. That was a real treat, wasn't it? What a great time. Anyway, I have pictures of these artists and of their work in the show notes. I've got links that'll get you to their websites. And I have a very special thank you that I need to say right now to my buddy, Jamie Burton Chamberlain, for putting all of this together and hooking me up with these talented artists. And by the way, remember I said that there were 5 interviews, right? Well, we only did 3, so that leaves 2. One of them is Jamie, and I'm going to have him on later when we get back in October. But I had a great interview with Hedda Lettuce. That's right, I had Hedda on the show, and it was a riot. So just as soon as I can clean up the questionable language, I will have Hedda on in about 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. Really, really, really funny episode. So to wrap up this showcase on Qulture Restaurant, Bar, and Artist Co-op, let me just say that if I gave stars, I would give 5 stars to this restaurant and to this art co-op. It's just a great little place. It's a treat for the eyes and the ears and the taste buds. Go there. You'll thank me for sure. Check out the art. Check out the food. It's just a great place to be. Well, okay, that should do it for this week. Next week, stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and your suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, then please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us your message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value for value proposition. His experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you would do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying thank you. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you're going to use someone else. So do it, really. And when you do take one of those tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And don't forget, he's got his maps, his DIY tours, his revitalized happy hour board, and more, and I have links to all of those in my show notes. And once again, if you like this podcast, then please take the time and subscribe and give a good review to me, if you would, on iTunes. That way we can get the word out to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Remember, I made it easy for you to do that with every episode I create, but if you haven't been to my website, you really need to have a look there. I've got links to places that we talk about. I've got interesting pictures and more, all right there in my blog posts and in the show notes for each episode of the show. So check them out for sure if you haven't, all right? All right. Well, thanks to Captain Carlos Hernandez. Go see Carlos over at Los Muertos Pier. Ask for him. He'll set you up with a panga. He's a great guy. I've got his picture and his contact information in the show notes. And thanks to the artists at Qulture, Claudette Johnston from C. Johnston Designs, artist Barbara Stenz, and Cassandra Shaw, of course. I have all their contact information. I've got some pictures of their work in the show notes, so make sure you go check them out for sure. And thanks to the folks over at Qulture who made me feel so welcome. Just make sure next time you're in town, make a point of going over there, having a drink, having something to eat, checking out the artwork. Really, seriously, it's a great spot. And thank you so much, Jamie Chamberlain, for setting up the entire interview for me. I really appreciate it. I owe you big time, buddy, really. Visit Jamie over at Black Dahlia Films and the Red Room over there at Qulture. And thanks to all of you for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for all of you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino eterno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río cuando todo está en calma. Pronto cae la noche, brillas Puerto Vallarta, samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.